Hello, everybody. First of all, a little reminder to either turn off or silence your cell phones for the presentation. It would be appreciated. If you have any questions for the presenter, we have 2 microphone stands. We ask that you queue up at the stands and ask your questions into the microphone so that everybody can hear the question and so that it can be recorded for the audio recordings. It is day 4 of 23C3. This is room Sol 1. It is 1400 hours, so that is the time for Mitch Altman's talk, Better Living Through Inventing. Mitch is the inventor of a really neat device, TV Be Gone, that allows us to shut out those damn boxes that just keep us from actually interacting with each other. About to go on a personal rant, not the time for it. Anyways, I will give you Mitch Altman. He's a better speaker than I am.
Thanks. Well, hi, everyone. I don't know if all of you have been having as great a time here as I have, but I hope so. This has just been fantastic. Well, I'm known for a lot of things, most recently into the media spotlight for TV Be Gone, which is my invention. And the talk I'm giving today is going to be about that. And there's a little picture of it with some friends' keys. Don't copy them. So the talk will be about TV Be Gone, but also, for me, there's nothing in isolation. So in order to talk about TV Be Gone, I have to talk about really my journey in life that brought me to this, which includes inventing, which is, for me, the coolest thing. And through my talk, I'm going to give a lot of opinions, and you'll be able to tell that I have strong opinions about things, but my intent is not to tell you the way it is, but to hopefully provoke you to thinking more about your opinions, because I don't want to tell anyone what to do. My whole thing is to give people more choice about the way they want to live, you all to live your lives the way you want to live your life, because the more we do that, the better we become, the better the world becomes. That's my belief. So, we live in a pretty weird world. I don't know if you've noticed, but part of the way the world is it just keeps seeming to speed up. And part of the problem, I think, is the technology we've developed. And the technology has been promulgated by not us. We might be the people who think of the ideas, but it's put out into the world by corporations who have one goal, and one goal only, which is maximum profits in the next quarter. So it's up to us, really, to have responsibility for what we put out into the world. And just think about that. One thing, just as some examples, technology is always put out by these corporations, and they always give the best case scenario of how it's going to make the world a wonderful place to be. It'll bring us closer together. It'll make life easier. It'll make life better. And there's some truth to that with many of the technologies out there. For instance, MP3 players, we can bring all of our music everywhere we go and listen to our favorite music everywhere. On the other hand, if everyone is walking down the sidewalk, as often they are in San Francisco where I live, listening to these things, how do we interact with each other? We're actually isolating ourselves from each other quite often. So there's pluses and minuses with these things. Cell phones, we can talk to people all over, our friends, wherever we go. I mean, I have my cell phone here. I can talk to my friends in the US just with a little push of a button. And yet, again, the same thing. If people are going around talking on these things, how do we have a spontaneous interaction with a real human being right next to us? And then email, it's great. I couldn't do TV Be Gone without email. All the people who helped me with TV Be Gone there's one friend who lives in Bremen, there's one who lives in Colorado, there's one who lives in San Jose, I live in San Francisco, and there are people all over the world. And yet, this thing has email in it, and it beeps, and it interrupts me every time, and I have to answer my emails all day. I don't know if any of you have this similar experience, but email eats up my day, and now I have 800 spams just to clear out to get my real email. Anyways, I don't want to harp on that. And of course, TV. TV was going to save the world when it came out. It brings us great entertainment and information from all over the world, and yet, before I get into TV much further, let me just show you this cool little survey that was taken at MIT. I took this out of this person I met through my work, Lady Ada. She did a thesis at MIT where she did some technology which shows you how to use technology to enhance your life pretty much despite and against what corporate world puts out there. So this study by MIT asked, what technology do you use that you're really annoyed with? Do any of you have any of that? These are the top ones that people said. So cell phones is the most annoying to people. And next comes alarm clocks. That one's pretty obvious. And then comes my favorite bugaboo, television. So it's just kind of interesting to me that we have these things that everyone agrees are extremely annoying, and yet we choose to live our lives with these things in them. And sometimes those choices are more or less conscious than others. So, okay, so TV. You guys know a lot of what I'm about to say. I give presentations often throughout the year for school kids, kindergarten through even like all the way up to grad school. And there's a thing all over the world, but mostly in the US and the UK and Canada, called TV Turn-Off Week. And people are invited to come to schools to talk about kids about TV and its effects. And a lot of what I say here is taken from that. One thing I always start off these talks with is asking people, what do you think is the purpose of television? So, any ideas? No one? Propaganda. You know, that's part of the thing, but for me, I think the main reason is what the last speaker was really talking about, and it's what I already said earlier, maximum profits in the next quarter. These are huge corporations, and in the US, I'm not so much sure about the rest of the world, like Germany and whatever, but in the US, all the major media rather are owned by 5 corporations, all of which share similar board members. So these guys have been high power positions in major corporations. They really know how to make maximum profits in the next quarter. So everything about TV, I think, really comes down to that. If they're putting out something which seems like propaganda, it's because it will enhance their profits in the next quarter, and not going against some other parts of the way the world works that will take away from that. That's the way it seems to me. So there's nothing wrong with making money in and of itself. However, when the messages put out by the media, TV in particular, are there for making maximum profits in the next quarter, they're not putting those messages out there for our behalf, for our well-being. And there are consequences to that. And the one big, huge consequence, as I see it, is time goes away. You turn on a TV, and the shortest show is half hour gone. There's 24 hours in a day. A half hour is a significant percentage of a day. We sleep 8 hours, we're working 8 hours, we have 8 hours left. Much of that is taken up going to the bathroom and eating and chilling out from work, getting ready for work. We only have very few hours to do what we need to do to live our lives, what we want to do to live our lives. So there's nothing wrong with TV. I don't want to say there's nothing good on TV, but you know, choose what you want to do with your time. Is there something you might want to do that's more enjoyable? Yes, no, it's up to you. It's not up to me. One thing I do in my presentations to kids is I play a little math game. The average American, if there is such a thing, a third of a billion people country full of diverse weirdos like me and whatever, but the average American lives 70 years, and they watch 4.5 to 6 hours of TV every day. So if the average American is on their deathbed, they're about to die, they've lived their life, they've been watching all this TV, how many hours, or how long have they spent in their life doing nothing but watching TV?
Too much.
13 years. Okay, so like what could you do if you could choose what to do with those 13 years. Would it be an enthusiastic, watch TV? If the answer to that question is yes, then you've lived a way fulfilling life. If the answer isn't yes, then maybe you could choose something else. And why wait till you're on your deathbed? Choose it now. Choose it for the rest of your life. We don't know how long we're going to live. We're born at some time. We live so long, who knows how long, and at some point we die. What do we do at that time in between? The choices we make about that, I think that's one of the most important set of choices we make in our life. So I encourage all of you to choose really well what to do with your time. So I have not always chosen what to do with my time well, but let me just go over quickly some of the other stuff with TV, which sort of goes back, relates to some other things I've done in my life. I was one of the people who helped develop virtual reality in this teeny little company in the Bay Area called VPL, and the visionary there was Jaron Lanier. And we did not know we were creating virtual reality. We thought we were creating some new programming language. And VPL stands for Visual Programming Language. But it turns out that everything we did was creating these alternate reality machines, and that was a mouthful, so we renamed it virtual reality. But the one thing that we really learned there is that brains, all of our brains, one of the things that they do really well is make things real. We look at patterns and we make them real, and it doesn't take much for our brains to find a pattern and call it real. We could just have little stick figures or outlines of things and repeat it a few times, and your brain says, real. Your intellect can be saying, I'm sitting in an office in Redwood City, California, but all of the rest of your being is saying, no, I'm floating in space, and there's clouds floating by, and there's a bad folk singer singing bad folk music floating by. Because that was one of the worlds I made. So TV makes very good use of that. The TV industry knows this well. The marketing industry knows this very well. So they repeat things over and over and over and over. And none of you, I'm sure, are going to buy a pair of shoes just because you saw a commercial. However, if the message is repeating that your life is inadequate, look at these people over here. They're happy, they're beautiful, and they're using product X. The unintended consequence of that is that you hear the message over and over and over again that you are inadequate. I don't need to be reminded of that. I already know that. I always had that message banged into my brain from birth. I don't need that reinforced. So I think we have to be very conscious of the kind of exposure we put ourselves through to these kind of messages that can actually be kind of harmful. So the thing is, like for me, I was extremely unhappy as a kid. I was very depressed. A bad family scene. I'd go to school. I mean, I'm a geek, right? And that makes me a target. In the US, geeks are beaten up. Not just like teased and tortured. That happened to me too, but like beaten up almost every day. And I didn't know what to do. I'm an introverted geek, and I just go home and retreat into television. That was the thing that was available. I didn't like it. I mean, I remember even thinking it at 5 years old. Like, I'm watching this show. It's called Gilligan's Island. I mean, if you're not from the U.S., maybe you don't know how stupid that is. But it's an amazing show where these different people are stranded on an island, and there's maybe one good joke per show, and just enough to keep me coming back for more. And I remember thinking, I don't like this. Why am I watching this every day? But I didn't have an answer, so I just kept doing it. And with that time that was spent doing that, I wasn't learning how to interact with other kids in a more effective way. I wasn't learning what it is about life that I might actually not hate, because I didn't even know anything I liked. So I would just go to school. I'd be more kind of in my shell. I'd be more of a target. I'd retreat more into TV in this vicious cycle, and that's called addiction in my book. So I guess true confessions time. My name is Mitch. I'm an addict. So this is the way it works, and it took me a long time to really realize that it was possible to live a life that didn't suck. And I'm glad I eventually did. Eventually, I found out that I can make choices for myself. And that's a really powerful thing. All my life, I would make choices for what I thought other people wanted of me. This worthless geek who everyone beat up. And the first choice I really made for myself was to quit television. And I'm not saying to anyone else quit television, but that's just my story in my life. When I quit TV, I suddenly had tons of time and energy that was free. And it was scary as hell, because my life sucked. And I didn't really realize that it didn't suck so bad, but it felt like it sucked. And all of the things that I was pushing away by watching TV started coming up, and I had to deal with it. But in that process, I found that there were things about life that I didn't hate. And when I started realizing that, I started looking for things that I actually liked. And I found I actually have been doing things that I like, because I've been playing in my basement, my parents' basement, just twiddling with solder irons and doing radio and all this other stuff. And when I started getting into that, I do what other things which harkened into my other addictions, which were drugs, but I made an electronic bong. And that was a hit for all these kids in high school. And that was kind of fun to be the center of attention for once, positively, rather than like all these kids beating me up and yelling at me. So once I started seeing that, there might be actually things that I love to do, and it turns out there are. And that led me to all sorts of things. I learned that I love volunteering. I love helping other people do stuff. Geek stuff for sure. I do computer recycling and give it away to nonprofit groups. And I found that being athletic and active didn't mean that I had to be beaten up in gym class. And inventing is certainly something that I love to do. And if we skip ahead a lot of years, I can talk about inventing, which I've invented a lot of things, usually for other companies, and I've invented a few things for me, but TV Be Gone is really the first thing that I've done for me that I really put out into the world. And I didn't know it was going to be so popular. If I had known, I probably would have flipped out and ran away, because I'm an introverted geek. But it turns out it's tons of fun. And TV Be Gone is a result of TVs popping up everywhere in public places, and as you can probably tell, I hate television. So I didn't really want to be subjected to television everywhere I went. In the US, it's way worse than here. It's bad here, but it's way worse in the US. There's TVs pointing everywhere, and now there's those huge fucking screen wall-size things. Where can we rest our eyes without being marketed to? But this has been going on for a long time. It was 13 years ago that I thought of the idea of TV Be Gone, because we were sitting, me and my friends, who I hadn't seen in a long time, we agreed to get together in a restaurant. It happened to be a restaurant that put a TV in the corner, just one. The sound was off, and yet we couldn't pay attention to each other because that thing kept distracting all of us, not just me. We weren't there for the TV, we were there to talk to each other, but we kept watching the TV. What's this about? So we started talking about why is it that we can't pay attention to each other just because that stupid thing is on. And that's when I came up with the idea. Wouldn't it be cool if you could turn those things off anywhere you went? Sorry. Yeah, so let me get rid of her. I have the power. But so do you. We all have the choice. So inventing, just a little teeny bit on inventing, it's a three-step process. You have to have a problem, and then you have an idea to solve it, and then you implement it. A lot of people come up with ideas, or they gripe about problems, but a lot of people don't make the time in their life to put it out in the world. I've gotten emails from so many people who say they've invented something, and just seeing someone else put it out in the world encourages them to do it. And they say, like me, it took me 13 years to get TV Be Gone in the world from that time in the restaurant where I had the idea. It's not always easy to make the time and energy in our busy lives to do what we really know we want to do. So the problem for me, TVs in public places. The idea to solve, the remote control TV Be Gone, and implementation, it's my TV Beyond, which I always have with me. Because unfortunately, you never know when you'll need it to have that choice. So it took me a year and a half to make TV Be Gone once I decided to do it. And I made a conscious choice in my life to quit doing all of this work. I've been a consultant most of my life, and it's been pretty cush. I work like 6 weeks to 3 months a year, and it pays really well being a geek in our culture lately, so I don't have to work the rest of the year. But I decided, I don't really want to work on these things which are just kind of neat. I want to work on stuff that I love. What would life be like that? I didn't know, so I figured I would just try it, and it gave me the time to do TV Be Gone. And this is the schematic for it. I don't know. Should I go into the geeky aspects, like how it works? Yeah? Okay. So it's conceptually extremely easy, although it took me a year and a half to actually put it together because there are a lot of gotchas along the way, but conceptually it's extremely easy. There's just one microcontroller, which is the yellow rectangle in the middle, and there's a push button. When the micro sees the push button, it goes through a database in its ROM and transmits every code in the database out of the infrared emitter, which is Q1. Oh yeah, another cool device. Don't try this with airplanes. Okay, so that is the driver, and that's the emitter, and it's just a standard infrared emitter that is in many remote controls. I actually chose a contract manufacturer in Hong Kong after searching for one which wasn't easy, that was good to its employees, that paid them a decent wage so they could make a living, and that was good to the environment, that was high quality, and gave me a good price. There aren't many of these in the world, but I happened to find one, and it happens to be the largest manufacturer of remote controls in the world. So it's only appropriate that they make TV Be Gone as well. So I asked them, what emitter should I use? They don't publish this stuff on the web. I mean, you look for remote control infrared emitters, and you really don't get the one to use. It turns out this is the one they use in almost all of their remote controls. It's really powerful. It's got a 30-degree angle, which is fairly wide, a lot of bright light going in that beam. You can use just about any other one, and it'll work, but this one's kind of nice. I have a visible LED here, just so when it's on, you can tell that something's happening. And this is a ceramic resonator at 8 megahertz, which is this Zilog chip that I chose to use. Zilog I chose not because it's necessarily the best. It's really good. It's a powerful little chip. It has timers built in that are specifically designed for remote control devices. And so it seemed like a good choice, and I knew Zilog because I'd done a bunch of projects with it, and I had the development environment. You could do it with so many other ones, though. One cool thing I found out with Zilog, though, after I spent a year and a half collecting all of the data from universal remote controls that I had bought, like I go to these big electronic stores, like around here it's Conrad or Saturn or whatever, they sell universal remote controls. I bought a ton of those, created my own data acquisition system because a logic analyzer was too expensive, and just recorded all of the power codes for every remote or every TV that were programmed into those universals. So I spent a year and a half doing that, and then I found out that Zilog has their own database fully debugged. And I'd become friends with all of the engineers in the remote control department, so they just gave me a license for theirs. And it's fun, working on something quirky, because these applications engineers at these corporations, they're kind of bored. They're doing the same thing over and over, and even if it's kind of a different project, it's still kind of the same technology. They were really thrilled to have something way weird. So I became friends with all of them, and they do favors. It's social engineering, I guess, but just more of you're friendly to people if people are friendly back. Anyways, this is the board, the back side and the front side. I had to make a lot of engineering trade-offs, as you have to do with all projects. just picking the emitter was a good trade-off, because do I want to have a wide beam that you don't have to aim as well, but that means it's less energy of light in every direction you point, which means the range is shorter? Or a more narrow beam where there's a lot more energy where you're pointing it, but you have to be more accurate? And I don't know if I made the right choice, but it seems to work, fairly good. Another one is with batteries. I use these coin cells. They're about the size of a euro, a little thinner though, to power. This one powers the microcontroller, which is there. This one powers the infrared emitter and the visible light, which is here. And the trade-off with that is they're small, so you can have a thing that fits on a keychain. The disadvantage is they don't put out as much power as, say, AAA batteries. And after this, I'll do another workshop like I did yesterday by the Food booth, where I can show you all how to make your TV on even more powerful. So if you want to do that, check it out downstairs after this. So anyways, there's some trade-offs. There were a few others too. One thing I did, which was a mistake, the microcontroller has built-in pull-up resistors. And it turns out that the pull-up resistor is a lot lower resistance than I'd hoped. And the way I tell the TV Be Gone to be North American or European, because I have a database for each, because there's so many different TVs in different parts of the world, I didn't want to have just one database to take way too long. I have a jumper here labeled R5, that's this one. If a jumper is in there, then it's European. Take the jumper out, it's North American. If it's European, the jumper's there, and it's got a constant slow trickle through the kind of low pull-up resistor off of this battery. So 12 months, these batteries go dead, which is why the European ones, I give away batteries with each one, replacement batteries. That was a fuck-up. But, there's so many details, even with a simple project like this, and it was just me. I didn't have a committee to look it over. I have a bunch of friends, but I'm the only geek, a hardware geek. So, I can say just a little bit about remote control codes. There's zillions of ways that manufacturers have figured out how to do remote control codes, and RC5 is the most popular, invented by Philips. What they do is they pulse infrared light very quickly when they want an on, and then when they want it off, they just have nothing. And how you interpret a 1 bit is to have pulsed on for a while, and then off for this length. Pulsed on for the same amount of time as before, and then off for half the length. That's a 0 bit. So this here is a 1 bit. This here is a 0 bit. And you can have as many bits as you like or as little, and different companies use different number of bits in their codes. Some of them, rather than having the off time change, they have the on time change. This might be 40 kilohertz on time, it might be 80, or it might have no carrier frequency, as it's called. And there's so many different ways of doing it, which makes making universal remote controls very, very challenging. Another thing that's important for TV Be Gone, but not so much for other universal remote controls, is that I don't want any two codes working on in my sequence on the same TVs, because if I have one code which is similar but kind of different from another one code in the sequence turns it on, the next, or turns it off. Somewhere later it turns it back on, and of course that's undesirable. So, anyways, I could go on at any of these things for too long. You can ask questions afterwards. So, a year and a half later, I actually have TV Be Gone. And I just want to say, when I made TV Be Gone, I just really wanted one for me. I wasn't thinking of making a product, but I'd tell friends, and of course they wanted them, they'd tell their friends, and it turns out they wanted them, and they'd tell their friends, and it turns out they wanted them, and suddenly there's all these people I don't know telling me, when are you going to have that thing? So I figured I had to make a bunch of them. And like I said, I found that company, the contract manufacturer in Hong Kong. jet lagged as hell. I'm walking around carrying like this package in my hands, pulling it out of my pocket occasionally. It's like, I couldn't believe it's real. After 13 years, a year and a half of my life working on it, it's like, it's real, it's in the world. It's kind of a trip. Just one person with the help of some friends, it's kind of cool. You can make things happen in the world that way. So, let's see, did I talk about that? Yes. So, but it turns out, I worked on this thing that I really love. A bunch of friends helped me who love the project. We weren't doing it because we were going to get rich. We were doing it because we really love the idea. And when you work on something you really love, it's really possible to make an impact. And here's some annoying distractions again. I became an accidental activist. And it's fun. I really love it. With TV Be Gone, I put it out in the world. I ran into a friend while jet lagged carrying this thing. I'd take it out of my pocket, look at it, put it back, and I'd run into a volunteer acquaintance from a bicycle coalition that I volunteer with. And he had a friend who pitched the story to Wired.com. They needed some padding in their online site next Tuesday, so yeah, okay, we'll run it. And I figured, well, there'll be a handful of people that might come to my website as a result of that. Because, I never thought of Wired.com. Wired Magazine, yeah, I heard of that, but it gives me a headache. Wired.com, I guess a few people might look at it and come to my website. Me and my friend Chris stayed up all night getting the website ready to take orders, and we were ready at 5:05 a.m. after being up all night, and suddenly my email starts telling me there's a message, and each time there was an order, it would send me an email, and I thought there must be something wrong, because I was getting an email every minute, and then 2 a minute. And this is, 5 in the morning, I guess it's 8 in the morning in New York, but, give me a break. It's just this keychain that turns TVs off. Who cares about that besides me and a few wackos? But at 9 in the morning, National Public Radio, which is a big sort of slightly right of center, which in America is considered radical, radio station, calls me up and does a live interview. And I guess I did okay because other people started calling me up en masse. And I knew an opportunity hitting me over the head when I saw one or heard one over the phone, and I went with it. So I used it, and I pushed it. So I came up right on the spot, with this sound bite. This is a fun way to get the message out there that a TV being on or off is a choice. So that was my message. And it worked. So it got out there. That same day, I got calls from so much worldwide big mega corporate media, including the New York Times, which came over and spent 4 days with me. I don't know if you guys know what People magazine is. I mean, that's the thing that says, Brad Pitt got divorced today, and, full page spread with my weird-ass hair sitting there. And that one's probably the one that's the biggest trip for me, because no one belongs in People magazine, let alone me. But but it's fun, They come up there and they do this makeup, and they shoot you with film all day, and then the reporter hangs out. It's a whole trip for just this one-page thing. What do they do to Brad Pitt? So, anyways, within a few hours of that first day, the website crashed from too much web traffic. Because I just had this cheap-ass PowWeb web hosting thing, and they only allow 5 gigabytes. It's like, that's infinite. Nope. It's not infinite. So the website takes 24 hours to reset, and it crashes again the next day. And it happened again and again until I finally said, I'm getting my own server. So me and some friends set that up. And meanwhile, the media keeps calling and calling. Not only the New York Times, but TV stations. I was on live national TV in America for 40 million people. And and I was saying this. And I was saying, turn me off. And then the other people are going, wait, don't turn us off yet, So I figured it'd be fun to have a half-hour-long infomercial. You know, it's like, why are you watching me? Turn me off. But that's only a fantasy. So yeah, and anyways, I was worldwide I was #1 news story in Chinese Yahoo. I was the #1 story in Yahoo all over the world for 2 days, and it's just amazing. You know, you put something out there, and the effect that it can have, you can't know. You just can't know. So yeah, I was in Der Spiegel, Le Monde, BBC, bazillions of times. You name it, TV Gone was there, and often with my face. So what else can I say there? With all the media, I mean, that's fun. I mean, someone puts a microphone in your face and they ask your opinion and you give it, and then they broadcast it verbatim to the world. What could be cooler than that? Unless you just go bleh. But I only did that a couple of times. But what I really knew I was doing something cool is when all over the web, people were talking about this device that they thought was really, really cool, except for one site called Gizmodo. And if you do a search on Google for TV Be Gone, it still comes up on the front page, and it says, Mitch Altman is an asshole. And not just your regular asshole, but the self-righteous, it goes, he's bad. He doesn't like me. But he never even met me. So it didn't really matter because zillions of people found out about TV Be Gone and ordered them because of him. And then there are all these other blogs and people uploaded videos. Here's one I found, and the guy who made this video I actually later met at this cool thing called a Maker Fair in San Francisco area, and they put on by Make magazine, and this guy turned out later to become the senior editor of that, and cool guy, his name's Phil. He put this video on, he said I could use it, so check this out, if we can get sound.
I don't know if I got any.
You got those two in there.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
It was an instant.
Are you sure this is
Video Be Gone.
There you go. Shit, I got a while. Go, yay!
Yeah, so I've heard that a few people have been trying this at Saturn across the street. I can only encourage that kind of behavior. And my hack has been hacked. So, you know, when you do something, other people use their imagination and make it even better for their thing, and that's what hacking is all about. So Hackaday put it inside of a cell phone. I don't have a picture of that. A French fan just emailed me and said, hey, I put it inside of some garois, and of course they're the worst cigarettes, but best for using in TV Gone because it fits perfectly the emitter in the O. Someone on Engadget put it in binoculars, and then you can get it from your neighbors like across a valley. And then this one here is a one. Where's my thing? This is on Instructables.com, which is a really cool do-it-yourself website, and they give step-by-step how-tos. Downstairs, I've been showing people how to do it with 2 extra emitters and a bigger battery. They went full bore with 20 extra emitters. That one gets 100 meters. Yeah, and it's quite a very satisfying feeling of power and control when you can. I highly recommend it. This is a baseball hat on Make magazine, makezine.com. They put TV Be Gone in here, and you can't really see it in this picture, but there are 3 emitters on the brim of the hat. So, and there's also they set it up so that it's always on. And there's a how-to on there. So everywhere you look, the TV turns off if there's one. So, yeah. Yeah, so, and now I just start a few things just in closing up. I made 20,000 TV Be Gones as a huge gamble. One of the companies I worked for, Silicon Valley startup, that makes a RAID controller, which is a device that makes disk drives go quick. And you know, it was okay. I mean, it's one of these things which the process is cool, but at the end of the day, it's not like I'm super proud that I put this into the world. It's cool. I mean, I have one in my computer. It helps me do audio recording on my computer, which I do. But of course, it's the usual Silicon Valley story. The investors start taking over. They hire a bunch of bozos, middle management, run it into the ground, almost put it out of business. It miraculously survives. And then they diluted everyone out who was there at the beginning to almost zero, and then sold the company for $150 million. And I got $70,000 out of that deal. A good chunk of money. I can't complain about having that amount when I thought I'd get zero. But you know, I worked 1.5 years of my life on this project, which is just kind of cool, and got mono, which is this horrible disease that comes from stress, and you do nothing but sleep for 3 weeks, which I needed. So anyways, they enabled me to buy 20,000 TV Begons, so I did. And what the hell? Free money, free TV Begons. And it turns out that it didn't take 5 years or so to sell them. It took 3 weeks. You know, and I just want to, one of the things that I see through the whole thing, like I'm a fairly creative individual, intelligent, but not really special, any different than any one of you guys. All I did was make a choice to do something that I love. You know, I made the time to do it. And by doing that, there was no guarantee that anything was going to come from it. But there is a guarantee that if you don't do that, you won't be doing what you love. So, you know, just make cool choices. So, you know, just on closing, just choose well what you do with the time of your life, and get some sound for the last 30-second video here.
TV begun upon your screen. TV begun, turn up the TV. TV begun, you can insert the TV begun. Ah, TV begun. Ah, TV begun.
So that's my wrap. If there are any questions, feel free.
Testing? Right. So I have a suggestion. Have you seen the guy who's flying his little 4-voter drone around?
Yes, and I had the same idea.
25-minute endurance, you can fly by a lot of windows.
I like that kind of thinking.
Aren't you thrown out of restaurants if you come in? Are you not blacklisted on all restaurants in San Francisco, so you have to eat somewhere else because you're the person who always switches off these televisions?
Well, you know, TV Begone, you've probably seen it's sort of a retro look. I did that purposely. You know, this is a group project. It was my idea, my vision, but all these friends just wanted to help. That video was made by a friend in San Francisco, and another friend designed the case. Another friend designed the graphics that were used in there and on the website. I'm losing track of my mind. What was I going at? Oh yes, the retro look. Harkening back to a time when TV wasn't so important. You know, back in the late 50s, early 60s, and Batman kind of look from that same era, Batman stealth. So this is Batman kind of stealth for a reason. You can use it with no one knowing. So I'm not kicked out of restaurants because nobody knows. And the weird thing is, when you turn off a TV, people don't notice. It's very weird because it's noise. We tune out noise when we come up with it, when we can't do anything about it. And so when it turns off, we're not conscious it turns off in general, but we feel better. I turn off the TV, and yeah, I turn off the TV, and I notice I go into a bar or a restaurant, I turn off the TV, and people who don't know each other suddenly start talking to one another. Or they go back to reading a book they're enjoying, or they throw away the garbage and leave and have a few extra minutes of life. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. The only people I notice are the people who work there, who somehow feel that they're obliged to turn it back on even though no one wants it on. Occasionally, though, I have been busted, and it's kind of fun. Because they get a kick out of it. I mean, they're angry, but they get a kick out of it. Play it up. So there's this one bar I go by. Every time I go by, I turn off their TVs. And one day I was in front of it. I turned the TVs off, and I'm talking to my friend. And I say, "Yeah, I do that every day. I come by here, and one of the bartenders is standing right there." So I still turn off their TVs every day. Got a question?
Oh, yes. You told about the jumper. So the thing which I had to do, I couldn't do else, was taking my TV Be Gone and opening it. And I was looking for the jumper because I thought it might be a nice idea to put a switch there to save the battery.
Yeah.
And if I go to the States, maybe I will do, but maybe I will not do. So I don't like my baggage searched when I go by plane or something like that, so I have to find another way. So I looked at it and just saw some open places for jumpers, or actually there were R's for resistors, and found a resistor near the battery. So did you use a resistor as a jumper to save battery, or do you have to search somewhere else?
So you're talking about the resistor, the jumper for turning it from North American to European, I presume. So that you can have any value there between 0 and 15 kiloohms when it's in there, which all the European ones that are, there's a couple hundred of them available at the FUBUD booth, just downstairs. All of them are European models, so they'll have the jumper in place. And that's the one that makes the battery go dead after 12 months, whether you use it or not. If you remove that resistor, that jumper, the battery won't go dead, and it'll be a North American. So you can put a switch there if you want to go back and forth. One thing, though, about getting searched at airports, I came here with 200 of them. It's no problem. So they don't know what this is. It looks like some car lock thing, whatever. They don't care. Oh, there's other reasons. I won't tell anyone.
Are there any reactions from the TV industry that they check for some signals that are sent before their power-off signal or something like that? Yeah, well, the original person who wrote the story for Wired.com, he was actually a journalism student, and he wrote a great story, if you want to check that out on Wired.com. He actually went out of the way to find out who owned all the TVs at airports. They don't just play CNN, they're owned by CNN. So he called them up and said, well, what do you think about this? And the way he put it, I really like. He said he could hear the man's throat dry up and constrict as he said, "You mean the general public can control our TVs?" So several months later, a reporter told me they did the same thing, and they asked over there, and their engineers were looking for a way to do just what you suggested. See if there's some way to distinguish between TV Be Gone signal and their remote control signal. Evidently, they gave up on that idea, and they went through the great time and effort and expense of encasing every one of their TVs across America inside a wooden case that blocks out the infrared receptor. However, that means you can't use a TV Be Gone from across the terminal, but you can walk right up to the thing, just point the TV Be Gone in, and people have thanked me for that.
two questions. The first question is, my son, my oldest son, uses the internet a lot. Do
Yeah.
you make an internet be gone? And the second question is, how long does it take to cycle through the entire database of remote codes?
I'll do the first question first. What we do at home with our own time is up to us. What we do out in public is another matter, because that impinges on other people. You as a parent, I think, are the person who has to give a perspective on what kind of screen time is appropriate and what isn't, and what kind of content is and is not. I wish more parents were into that. My parents were not. As far as the other one, I have about 120 different codes that work on thousands and thousands and thousands of different makes and models for the North American, and then a separate one for European. And it takes about 62 seconds in the current model of TV Gone to go through that. That's a long time to wait if you're sitting there paying attention to time. 60 seconds can go by like nothing if you're doing something enjoyable, but if you're sitting there waiting, it can take a while. So I put the most popular codes first. So in the North American one, the most popular TV is Sony, and so I put them first, and that's very nice. It's instantaneous. Sony is the added advantage of being super sensitive remote control receptors, so you can turn them off really easily. I love Sony. So in the European model, Sony is number 3, so it's still about a second and a half. And I think Thomson's first. I can't remember. But most TVs, like 80–90% of TVs will turn off in the first 10 seconds or so. Yeah.
I have a technical question. What was the reason to design the device with 2 batteries?
Because I wanted to use just one. The power supply is something that a lot of engineers don't put a lot of thought into. And when I first started doing my geeky experimentation, I didn't think about it a lot either. You just do the cool work, and then you have to power it somehow. Batteries are, they impose a lot of different interesting problems you need to solve. The thing with coin cells, they're very small. They last a long time for their size, but they have a very high internal resistance. So if you use just one battery, there's a huge amount of current that's pumped out of the battery into the emitter, and that makes the voltage sag because it's dropped across the internal resistance. As the voltage sags, the automatic brownout detector in the chip, it does a power reset. So that wasn't going to work, so I had separate battery for each. One thing, too, that I've discovered later, a difference between actual use over time and calculating. I used originally to power the emitter 2 half-height batteries called CR2016, because it's 6 volts. I figured more voltage, more current, more light output. It turns out, though, that if you use one CR2032, a sort of a fat version, the same one I used to power the microcontroller, then the battery is actually more powerful because there's less internal resistance and it lasts longer. So if you ever need to replace the batteries there, I'd suggest using the fatter one. And I talk about that on my FAQ page on the TV Be Gone website. Oh yeah, I wanted to, if anyone wants stickers, I've got tons of them. There's more at the Fobud booth, and I'll just put a bunch of them here. And if anyone wants my card to email me later or whatever, just grab one. I got tons of those. Or just grab me and talk to me. I'm fine. I like talking to people. So.
I imagine that as time goes by and new TVs come out, the database will pretty soon be outdated. Is there a way to update the database or flash the ROM or something?
Well, that was another engineering trade-off I made. The chip I used is a custom chip. Since I was making 20,000, it was cheap enough to make a custom chip, so it's not reprogrammable. I could have made it so it could like put it into Flash or something, that would make it way more expensive with the technology available 3 years ago. So unfortunately, there's no way to update it, but I do come up with updated versions about once a year. We're on version 2 now. I am currently working on version 3, but they're not outdated. They don't become obsolete because even though there are some new TVs out there with new codes, just a few of those huge wall-size things I can't get with version 2. But I do get them with version 3. That does not make it obsolete for the billions of TVs already out in the world in public. So, so unfortunately, it's a $20 update.
Hello. I'm not sure if you like this question, but there's been a lot of talks like on hardware, and there's these lovely projects, and they're basically, most of them were open in design. Does this as an open design? Well, the performer question has already somewhat answered that. But is at least like the database open or parts of the design, so like you can make your own updated version and not keep spending 20 euros every time? 30 euros, sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, when I made TV Gone, I wasn't really thinking of making it into a product that would be mass marketed, so I didn't really think about that kind of stuff. But the database that I have isn't really, it's my own weird kind of way of doing things because they don't really publish, the TV industry doesn't publish what they do with their remote control code, so I just like figure all this stuff out, and I have my own weird way of doing it. My data acquisition system is really tedious. It just comes up with a 12,000 line file full of nanosecond timing numbers. And then I have some software from that to recognize some patterns in it. I'm perfectly willing to like share all my research with people, but like publishing the database wouldn't be very useful for anyone else. It could be maybe if I spent like several weeks documenting it, but I don't have time for that. So, but I'm perfectly willing, if anyone wants to know anything about TV Gone, I'll share it with them. And you know, the schematic I showed up here, it's pretty simple, but you know, that's public knowledge as far as I'm concerned. So I'm sorry it's not, you know, totally open like it could be. If I would have to do it all over again, I would, but I didn't really plan for it to be so super popular.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, I just spent a few minutes browsing the TV Begone website, and on the front page it says TV Begone now has an instant reactivation feature. So it's TV On, really. My question is, why?
You know, that was something I didn't have in the original version 1. I thought of that idea one day too late to add it in, and I think it's a really important feature. It's not TV On. Unfortunately, when TVs are in public, they're usually not one TV, there's several. So, and sometimes in a public place, you're just about to get the TV, but someone walks in front of you. And with the original version, you had to go through the whole sequence, and then it resets itself, and then you could start it again. But there wasn't even a visible light which told you when it was over. So I added this feature, so if you have a TV over here and you turn it off, you click it, wait for the TV, oh, it's off, okay, now it's time to get this TV over here. You push the button for at least a second, and then it starts the sequence over, and then I can get that TV. Sometimes it actually is kind of fun to turn the TV on, like at these places in public where I say, you know, no one notices except the people that work there. I was at a restaurant once with my family, my brother and his family, and it was this really nice restaurant. It was expensive, and my brother paid for it, which is I'm thankful for. And there were all these little rooms, and each one had a wall-sized TV in it. Why? You know, this is supposedly a nice place to eat. So anyways, I turned it off. Not even anyone in my family noticed. And of course, they know TV Gone. They each have a TV Gone. But the waiter comes in, and the first thing she does is turn the TV on. Everyone noticed that. So I turned it off again. She comes in again, and she's like, and just as she's reaching for the TV, I turned it on. And then I turned it off, and everyone in the room laughed. So you know, it's just ways of getting the message out there in different ways. So the instant reactivation feature isn't so much a new thing, since the first 20,000 didn't have it. But 20,000 is almost minuscule now, and hardly anyone has those, because I've sold over 100,000 of these things. So that's why I have that.
Okay, thank you. Save me one.
So is that it? Okay, so I'll be downstairs, or I'll hang out here for a while, but I'll be downstairs doing a workshop again like yesterday about making TV guns more powerful.